Hello everybody and welcome back to Jeb Lost His Keys Part 2, where we arrive at the wonderful Jool planetary moon system thingy, and we're going to dive right into it. So here we are in the sphere of influence of Jool, and the first order of business to get a gravity assist off of Tylo. So basically what I did was plan my trajectory as such that I, would almost with no expenditure of delta V reach a stable orbit around Jool and maybe even already get into Lathe's sphere of influence. Yes, the first station on our journey is Lathe. But first we have to gather some science and also take a view at this wonderfully magnificent scenery. Look at that. Scenes like these are one of the reasons why I probably won't stop playing KSP for quite a long while. Okay, now gathering all the science so we can reuse those modules. That's why we brought scientists. And then it's time to head back into the lab to get some work done. Of course, due to the fact that we have our gravity assist, we have to do a Tylo flyby. We also got some science from there, and then it's back to the outer sphere of Jool. Well, not really the outer sphere, but space high above Jool. We're probably not going to get some science from close to Jool, but yeah, that can't be helped. We're adjusting a trajectory a little bit to get a better encounter at Lathe. And then while those moons dance around the green Jool, we are now in close proximity of Lathe, and look at that, Tylo is kind of interfering with our sunlight a little bit. So we're already witnessing our first eclipse. Nice! Okay, heading to the encounter with Lathe, which is completely darkened out by Tylo at this moment. And yeah, since we've done that, it's now time to get ready for our not circularization, for our capture burn. Of course, we have to spend some delta V, some fuel, to get into a stable orbit around Lathe. But first, let's gather some science. And of course, once again, we have to take a hike or a fly to get those juicy little science secrets. There we go, heading to the back of the Naginata where the Giri plane is docked. And now we gather all those science information that we need. These are the times where those sticky menus are really coming in as a very helpful tool, so thanks KSP developers, those are really handy. Okay, we're spending about something between I think 500 and 600 meters per second of delta V to get circularized. And I'm also lowering my apoaps a bit so we don't have to take such a deep plunge with the plane into Lathe's atmosphere. And since we're close to Lathe, we already got some more science. Okay, now that we are in a stable orbit, it's time to get ready. First, we have to do another small adjustment burn, which we just did, and have a beauty shot of the Naginata bathing in the sunlight over the shores of Lathe. Okay, enough with that bad poetry, let's get the Giri out of the back. There we go. This is our vehicle that we're going to set down on Lathe, hopefully on land. If you're familiar with Lathe, you probably know that Lathe is, covered in a lot of water. Quite a lot more than Kerbin actually. But before we do that, we have to get our orbit quite a lot lower, and therefore we're going to aerobrake a few times. So we don't have to spend a lot of delta V that we were going to need to get back to the Naginata once we have landed on Lathe. Okay, a few more beauty shots because it just looks so darn good. And yeah, I'm trying to adjust the orbit as such so that, first of all, I get to land on the day side of Lathe, and also so I hopefully get to land on land. Yeah, this would really be detrimental to the mission if we would, yeah, plunge into the oceans. But first let's gather as much science as we can from the upper atmosphere, and here I'm trying to perform quite the, well, dangerous stunt. We're going to get out in the upper atmosphere and trying to get some EVA report before the Kerbal burns up, and we barely managed to do that. Oh, sunrise above Lathe and aiming at the Giri. So we are now already in the upper atmosphere and braking a lot. So this is now the time to look for a suitable landing site, and actually we found one. Look at that island to the left. I'm pretty sure it's not the one I aimed for with the help of the trajectories mod, but it's going to have to do. So while we're heading down, I've cut the part where I collected the samples from the upper parts of the atmosphere. So here we're already flying towards the ground so we can collect those samples. There we go, collecting. Yes, this is fine. So I'm going to fire those engines a bit so I get a more stable trajectory, and I really want to get a very flat landing profile. Because if you remember the first episode, those landing gears, yeah, they are a bit weird. And this also had a lot of failed landing attempts. You're looking at the pristine edited down version of about, I don't know, maybe 20 attempts to land here. So I really had to get this very flat and with a very low vertical speed, and also with quite the low horizontal speed, because if you're going too fast this thing gets completely uncontrollable. Anyhow, you're going to see here my approach on Lathe's surface, and you see the shadow closing in, firing the engines to... Whoops, that was a bit of a mistake. Okay, there we go, and yes, touchdown, but now the really hard part begins. I have to steer with the front wheel and also with the fins and also roll around so I don't crash any part into the surface, and then I'm going to try to brake. Yeah, this was quite sweat-inducing, believe me. But in the end we managed to land fine, and here we are on the beautiful dunes of Lathe under pink clouds. Or are they violet? Lavender? I don't know, I'm a guy, I don't know about colors. Okay, the usual stuff: collecting surface sample, EVA report, planting a flag. Our first flag actually of this Naginata mission, or Jeb lost his key mission. So before we can get back up into the atmosphere, well, out of the atmosphere actually, we have to collect some science and create some more. There we go. So as I mentioned in the first episode, the plane is completely autonomous. It has a probe core and an antenna, so you can control it from the Naginata with a pilot. So yeah, you can use a scientist to head to the planets you like, and therefore you don't have a problem with fixing the science modules and also with the maneuver nodes, because this little Kerbal in here, Durler Kerman actually, if I would not have a direct connection with the Naginata, then I can't perform any maneuver nodes. So we are now jumping off Lathe's surface and heading upwards. So those mighty Whiplash engines are firing at full throttle. For some reasons it's kind of wobbly. I don't know why. Anyhow, let's get up there. So the thing is, Lathe's atmosphere is a bit different from Kerbin's. It's also not as high as Kerbin's, so this should be a lot easier than the ascent I did in the first episode. So yeah, if you can manage to create an SSTO that can get from Kerbin's surface up to orbit, you definitely have a contender for a Lathe SSTO at hand. So we're ditching our engines. Why? Well, we're not going to need them anymore. They are, well, useless basically for the further mission, and also the more weight we can save for other moons that we're going to visit, the better. Those of you with a bit more KSP experience probably are going to know which of those moons I've meant. Okay, we're already back into orbit. And now it's time to get our rendezvous with the Naginata. And here we are, this looks quite promising. Well, only a few hundred meters apart. This is fine, but we don't have a lot of Delta V left. Let's see how this works. And how it works is we have to split up the target matching with between the Giri and the Naginata. So since the Naginata has enough, way enough fuel, she does the brunt of the work. And you can see in the back Lathe casting its shadow on Jool. Beautiful. Don't you love celestial mechanics? Okay, time to get this thing back in the hangar. So we're using the precious few units of RCS that we have. And now it's time to dock inside this cargo bay. Or docking bay, you can call it whatever you like. So almost there, and yes, we are now connected to our mothership. So yeah, it's time to plan our next steps of the journey. And also we can start some research so that we have a few more science points that we can deliver. And yeah, our next step in the journey, which we will visit in the next episode, is Tylo. Yeah, and Tylo is a bit of a tough nut to crack, and I'm waiting with a bit of trepidation for this next part of the mission. But you're going to see it in the next episode. So thanks for watching. Goodbye.